Saudi Arabia is a vast country that spans an impressive 2 million square kilometers, making it the 14th largest country in the world in terms of landmass. However, an overwhelming 95% of the kingdom is comprised of a hot, dry desert with an abundance of sand, and it stands out as one of the few countries in the world without a permanent river. Despite the harsh climate conditions, Saudi Arabia surprisingly boasts arable land that flourishes with agriculture. This unexpected sight can be observed by zooming in on the country, where one will witness a network of farmlands producing various fruits, which is an anomaly in the desert. Interestingly, most of the farmlands are circular in shape. Remarkably, the kingdom has 35,000 square kilometers of arable land, a land area larger than the Netherlands and 3 times bigger than Qatar. However, this was not always the case. In the 1960s, the country had only 400 square kilometers of arable land. How did the oil-rich nation transform its desert into an oasis of farmland in such a short period? Join us in this video as we explore the innovative methods Saudi Arabia employed to expand its arable land. Although Saudi Arabia is mostly known for its vast desert landscape, it was not always devoid of lush vegetation and human settlements. In fact, around 10,000 years ago, the region experienced a surge in rainfall, which resulted in the expansion of lakes and vegetation, creating favorable conditions for human habitation throughout the Arabian Peninsula. However, prolonged droughts in the subsequent millennia caused significant ecological changes. Yet, humans managed to adopt and continue living in this sandy terrain. The arid period between 5,900 and 5,300 years ago, known as the Dark Millennium, rendered much of Arabia uninhabitable, but evidence shows human occupation at the Juba oasis during that time. In other parts of northern Arabia, people took measures to access water, such as constructing walls around oases, creating landscape features to capture water runoff, and digging wells. Despite the scarcity of water on the surface, Saudi Arabia has aquifers, water reservoirs beneath its desert terrain, similar to the country's vast crude oil reserves. Nevertheless, the kingdom has been extracting water from these underground sources for several years, mainly for large-scale irrigation and agriculture, enabling successful planting and harvesting. Despite the benefits of pumping water from below the ground, there is a concern that it could deplete aquifers, particularly in areas that rely heavily on large-scale irrigation, such as Saudi Arabia. To address the issue, Saudi Arabia has adopted a new technology that has had a significant impact on the water conservation. This technology is known as center pivot irrigation, and it has made a big difference. So, what exactly is center pivot irrigation, and how did it come about? In 1948, a creative farmer from Nebraska named Frank Zyback invented a new type of sprinkler system which he called the center pivot. He was granted a patent for his invention in 1952. Center pivot irrigation involves using a mechanized system to irrigate crops in a circular pattern around a central pivot. The key component of this system is a long radial pipe that is supported by sprinkling towers. These towers pivot around the center point of the entire mechanism. The radial pipe is equipped with nozzles that are evenly spaced to supply water to the surrounding crops. As the pipe rotates gradually, the water is released uniformly from the nozzles to provide the crops with much-needed nutrients. The radial pipe system utilized in center pivot irrigation ensures that water is uniformly distributed to crops. The water travels in a straight line down the field, with all nozzles having the same flow rate and coverage area. For large-scale agriculture, center pivot irrigation systems are capable of covering up to 130 acres in a straight system and nearly 155 acres in a swing-arm system. The length of the attached pipe determines the coverage area. The pivot point is the central component of the center pivot irrigation system. It is the location where the water first enters the pivot pipes and where the entire mechanism revolves around. Another crucial component is the control panel, which serves as the brain of the setup. It enables farmers to operate the machinery, start and stop the machine, and change modes of operation. Center pivot irrigation systems offer basic and advanced digital panels for farmers to choose from, based on their budget and requirements. The machinery comprises various components, including the drive tower or unit, which makes contact with the ground and houses the necessary hardware for system movement. Typically, this component includes wheels, a base beam, drivetrain, and other crucial structural supports. Additionally, there's a tower box that directs the drive unit, enabling the machinery to move correctly and for the appropriate duration. Farmers can utilize center pivot irrigation to evenly distribute water across extensive farmland while significantly reducing labor during harvest season. This solution addresses two challenges: high labor costs and farmland variability. Furthermore, this irrigation method helps conserve substantial amounts of energy over the long term. Moreover, this system is recognized for its superior water efficiency, as it minimizes water runoff and reduces farmers' water expenses. Using this technology also facilitates easier water level management for farmers. With the semi-automatic nature of this mechanism and the lateral movement of the sprinklers, farmers can more easily manage their soil's water levels. Center pivot irrigation is a highly efficient method of water application, with a success rate of nearly 80%, far surpassing traditional techniques. One of the most versatile irrigation systems available, it can be used on almost any type of crop. Moreover, it has the added advantage of being able to distribute other essential fluids such as pesticides and fertilizers with ease. In Saudi Arabia, approximately 2/3 of all irrigated land employs the center pivot irrigation method, which has contributed significantly to the growth of intensively irrigated agricultural land. This shift was aided by the government's support and incentives to farmers, which helped ensure the nation's food supply. Initially, Saudi Arabian farmers encountered issues with excessive corrosion in the lateral piping of their center pivot irrigation systems due to a variety of water quality standards. In response, they replaced high-cost steel pipes with polyethylene pipes that are resistant to corrosion. Farmers drew upon their own experiences and consulted with technicians to redesign their systems without the involvement of center pivot dealers and designers who rely on predetermined pressure for each sprinkler. This innovative solution involved directly positioning polyethylene laterals with short drop tubes under the standard steel pipes just above the ground surface at a height of 150 to 200 centimeters. Center pivot irrigation system owners replenish their water every 3 to 5 years, depending on the salinity. In 1992, non-renewable groundwater provided 85% of Saudi Arabia's water and 92% of irrigation. Center pivot irrigation systems increased nationwide. However, excessive center pivot irrigation water consumption can have long-term environmental and economic effects. According to a 2004 research from the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, if extraction rates persisted, the Saudis will have consumed at least 96 cubic miles or 400 cubic kilometers of their aquifers by 2008. Experts say 4/5 of Saudi Arabia's fossil water is gone. In Al-Badia, 20 kilometers south of Mecca, rich terrain has turned into deserts. Bedouin tribes were forced to dwell in a certain region, causing the problem. Overgrazing and vegetation loss resulted from this transition. The people hacked down trees for charcoal, converting lush terrain into a desert. The seasonal rainfall generated flash floods that raced to the Red Sea instead of soaking the land to replenish groundwater supplies, necessitating deeper wells. The government hired Stanford permaculturist Neil Spackman and Harvard bioethicist and futurist Mana Hamdi to counteract this tendency. Spackman lived with Al-Badia residents from 2010 to 2018, building rock terraces, check dams, and rainfall swales. Packman and Hamdi used Inca and Nabatean water conservation methods to reroute seasonal floods and channel water into productive streams. By 2015, the Bedouin tribe and Packman had planted 4,000 drought-resistant trees. Most of the trees died, but enough survived to provide food for bees and animals, windbreaks, oil seeds, and nitrogen fixation. When the money dried up, the project was abandoned. Despite the rain, the trees sprouted, suggesting that the Al-Badia strategy might be replicated across Saudi Arabia. Plant life might help the nation thrive. Finding sustainable and resilient solutions to climate change and environmental deterioration is crucial. Saudi Arabia's arid climate, coupled with its rapid population growth, presents significant challenges to sustainable water management and agricultural production. However, the country has been able to overcome some of these challenges through the use of innovative irrigation techniques such as center pivot irrigation. Despite the success of these techniques, the country must continue to address the issues of water scarcity and depletion of non-renewable groundwater. Sustainable solutions such as implementation of rainwater harvesting systems, investment in renewable energy sources, and the use of water-efficient crop varieties can help alleviate some of these challenges. Moreover, promoting public awareness and participation in sustainable water management practices can help ensure the responsible use of water resources for future generations. Ultimately, achieving sustainable water management and agricultural production in Saudi Arabia requires a multifaceted approach that incorporates technological innovation, policy reform, and community engagement.